But similar to the keynote this morning, around if every spreadsheet could be an API, I think there's innumerable possibilities for APIs against the emissions solutions. So thanks again, Joe. And next up, I have the honor of introducing you to Parna. Parna comes from Google, and she is a cloud evangelist, really focused on implementing cloud-based solutions from outsourcing to systems integration. We're going to learn around driving the green value chain with Parna. And if she had any time, it would be wonderful because she's also a singer of classical Indian music, and that comes back from her heritage in Bangalore, I think it was. We'll see if we can focus on the green today, but we can probably look for her in another outlet to get the classical music another time. So over to you, Parna. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I need to adjust this, or this is fine?
I think you're good.
Okay, cool. And keep tapping.
Yep.
How do we move?
We'll just get some quick help with managing the technology.
How many technologies does it take to get a slide working? This is not?
I don't think so. Oh, click your name.
He told me
All
that.
the secrets. There we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you. I love cloud, absolutely. And as I was introduced, I am a cloud evangelist, but my day job is also to be the business leader for Apigee, which is Google's API management platform. In the next 20 minutes or so, we have heard a lot about how Google is working with our customers globally in order to meet sustainability goals. So I'm going to talk how a cloud provider looks at sustainability and tie it to APIs. That will be the first lens. All good? The second lens would be to zoom in a bit and look at it from an ecosystem perspective. We all love APIs, and APIs are, ecosystems are not possible without APIs. And then finally, what can you and I do as API evangelists, as people who are practitioners of APIs today, in order to meet sustainability goals of our organization? So thinking about it from an API program perspective. Again, since morning, we have been hearing about sustainability not being a random topic anymore. It is something which the board is looking after, which the CEOs have in top of their mind. And the key reason behind is you and I, we are changing our brand loyalty based on sustainability goals of the brand providers. So, and then investors are paying attention to the consumer behavior, regulators are coming in, and hence the whole, the focus towards green and focus towards sustainability is becoming top of mind because it makes business sense. Not only does it's the right thing to do, it also makes business sense. Every industry has its own sustainability goals that, of course, those organizations are looking towards. So I'm going to use the example of a customer, Unilever. Unilever and Google are working together to attain their sustainability goals that they have. Unilever started their climate action program. They had their climate action program defined way back in 2015. And the idea was to be completely eliminate carbon footprint by 2030. And they have an interim goal of reducing it by 70% in 2025. But they have also gone a step ahead. They're not only thinking about carbon footprint that Unilever is creating, they're also working with their suppliers to reduce the carbon footprint of their entire supply chain. And that is where the complexity comes in, right? Because you can decide what you want to do with your organization, but how do you influence other organization, your ecosystem, to work alongside you and reduce the carbon footprint? So what Google does is, of course, we spoke, it was shared today on how just moving into cloud improves an organization's sustainability targets. So that's awesome, right? Reduce your data center footprint, move to cloud, that's first. But what Google has done is we have created a carbon sense suite. which gives the power on the hands of our customers to decide which data center do they want to choose. So they can choose data center based on, of course, cost, latency requirement, regulatory requirement, but every data center now has a term called carbon-free emission percentage, which is transparently shared. And what we have seen is when you give that power to the customers and consumers, they do the right thing. So 19% of our existing customers are moving towards greener data centers. 50% of new customers are moving towards greener data centers. So giving that choice to the end user, to the customers, are having an impact directly. Second is the sustainable value chain. So going back to the Unilever example, one of my favorite Unilever brand is Ben & Jerry's, and I really like cookie and cream. So the cookie that is put inside the cookie and cream requires palm oil. Now, for palm oil, let's say their palm oil supplier is based out of Indonesia. So now how does Unilever make sure that the palm oil plantation for their supplier is not in a illegal deforested land? So Google is tied up with Tracemark. Tracemark is an Australian-based company working globally with Google to find the first mile sustainable practices of their suppliers. So from the plantation to the mill, making sure that the suppliers are doing the right thing. Another challenge, of course, during COVID, all of us are kind of guilty of ordering a lot of food at home and then moving online in terms of our shopping patterns. So we are shopping for groceries online, retail shopping, etc. What that means is there are more vehicles on the road. That increases the carbon footprint of our organization, of our customers. So what Google has provided is a fleet optimization solution so that customers can choose the right pathway, the right road to your home to deliver those solutions, to deliver those products. Then finally, ESG. Okay, I forgot to tell you. So to make sure that this conversation is more engaging, I'm going to ask you 3 questions throughout this. So you better pay attention. The first is, who knows what is ESG? We heard about ESG since morning. Joe, would it be a little cheating if I give it to you? No. Yes, go ahead.
So this is the environment, sustainability, and governance?
Yeah, society and governance. So you get a gift from me. Catch me after this. Yes, you're right. ESG is environment, society, and governance. And what it does is, ESG has become, again, a board-level topic. This is something every organization has to report to the market on. And it is also a competitive differentiator these days. But it requires a lot of data crunching. So Google, of course, works with our customers to get that ESG data. And the challenge is all this data needs to be traced. It needs to be analyzed. It needs to be reported and then acted upon. So how does Unilever understand that, okay, changing these particular whether it's technology, whether it's processes, that is having the right outcome. So you have to monitor the data, you have to analyze the data, you have to report back to the board, to the market, to the investors on that data, and then you have to act on that data. And how do you do that, right? Of course, using APIs. Of course, a little biased, but yes. Finally, Google. See, climate risk is something, unfortunately, in Australia, we have seen the impact directly, right? We have seen 2019 wildfires. We have seen the floods this year in NSW. So this again, has a direct impact on how organizations plan, what kind of risk mitigation strategies do they have. And Google Earth Engine-enabled solutions helps our customers do that. So from a cloud provider's view, these are the 4 angles that Google is focusing on in order to help our customers. Now let's take a step forward and think about it from an API ecosystem perspective. Second question for the group here. Do you know when was the first solar cell created? The solar cell that we use in our solar panels now, when was it created? Even a decade is fine, yeah.
1974.
74? Any other answers?
65, 60s. Early 1900s?
No, a little later than that, but somebody said 60s?
65?
So it was created in 1954. So the first solar cell was created by Bell Labs in 1954. And our government is asking us now to put solar panels on our house and make sure that we are using renewable energy. So it takes time for any new technology to become mainstream. And to Joe's previous presentation, there is a lot of work being done, including by Google, to get cutting edge technologies back. But the reality is there are no green swans that's going to come and change and disrupt the market anytime soon. So Green Swan, there's a really nice book about this, but essentially green swans are technologies which will come and completely change the way we work and live. It will come, but it will take decades to arrive and become mainstream, right? So the reality is that we have to make do with what we have today in terms of technology and still drive the market architecture towards a greener solution. So before I go deeper into API ecosystem and the green value chain, I want to introduce this concept. If you know Apigee, you might already have heard about this, the concept of a digital value chain. We have been talking about digital value chain for the last 10 years. The idea is that you have the exposure layer inside your organization, which has your services, your backends, your databases, and your API team essentially takes those services, exposes them as APIs, and makes it available to your end user. So your developer or partner leverages those APIs, puts in an application, and then your end users are consuming it. Then these end users can be your internal teams, it can be your partners, it can be your external developers, right? The way Apigee has been designed and our point of view always has been to think about API development from outside in perspective. So think about what your consumers need and then define what is required internally in order to meet those consumers' requirements, rather than inside out, wherein you have a bunch of APIs and microservices and let me expose it and hope that somebody is going to come and leverage it. So outside in versus inside out. What we have done is, so of course it requires visibility, of course it requires security. These are like table stakes in today's world in terms of API management platforms, right? As I was telling before, in order to meet an organization's sustainability goal, our customers have to report on what they are doing. And in order to report what they are doing, in terms of how are they meeting the sustainability target, they need to measure it. We are working with organizations across the globe, across industries, especially banking, retail, where for every physical asset that our customers have, they are creating a digital twin, which is emitting the information around how much carbon is being emitted by that particular physical asset. So whether it's smart delivery, warehouses, whether you have a fleet of trucks, making sure that you understand changes that you are making in your physical asset, the impact that it has, and of course, it requires data and it requires APIs. Okay, so this brings us to green value chain. So the digital value chain, of course, is still absolutely relevant. We need the digital value chain. But why is it turning green is because of the various demand patterns we are seeing around the sustainability goals. This is a busy slide, but essentially what it's trying to talk about is there are two things which are guaranteed in the coming decades. One is volatility of the market. It's going to be super volatile. And second is that your partnerships need to continuously change. The market volatility will be driven by, first and foremost, regulators. Regulators are going to force, of course, the government to do things, and when government starts slipping, then they will encourage the banks and the telcos to start meeting the sustainability goals. So the government will start penalizing certain things, they will start encouraging certain things, and organizations would have to change their strategy, their business accordingly. Second is, of course, technology. Yeah, the green swans will land someday, right? So organizations would have to adopt to those technologies as and when they come, whether it's the solar power cells today, it's going to continue to improve, and again, those changes needs to be taken care of. Finally, unfortunately, the reality of climate change and climate risk is there, right? So we have to continuously understand and mitigate those risks. Okay. So that what it means is that organizations have to think about short-term partnership to medium-term partnership to long-term partnership. So remember that supplier in Indonesia. If that supplier doesn't change the way, doesn't change the way they are working, then Unilever, because of their own goals that they have set up, they have to change the partnership. So partnerships have to continuously change based on the supply chain's ability to adopt to the greener way of doing things. So absolutely, as we said, of course, API is going to be critical in this volatile partner-driven market, and that's the reason we are here. It's exciting times for us to have an impact directly on driving a greener economy. API program. Do I? Okay, because I wanted to give an example in the previous one, in the partnership one. See, regulators are actually having a pretty intense way of defining how technology works. One example is we are working with Nissan in Europe, and if Nissan has, of course, I think all car manufacturers are tracking your driving patterns. But in Europe, what they have done is that based on my driving pattern, I can ask Nissan to share that information with an insurance company so that I can get a better car insurance. So essentially, the power is in my hand as a user, that I can decide that, hey, please share my driving pattern data with an insurance company to make it easier for me to get rebate in my insurance. So that requires APIs, that requires digitization. That information cannot be shared in PDFs or Excel sheets or database movements, right? It requires APIs. API program, so what can we do now? L'Oreal, we all know L'Oreal, it's a beauty product company based out of Europe again. They say that APIs are as integral as scents and shades. Awesome, great quote. But the reason I'm talking about L'Oreal in this topic is the way they have defined their API program. And this is what we can do as an organization now, right? As practitioners now. So sustainability is defined as part of their core design principle, API design principle. Things like, what is an API lifecycle? How do you quickly decommission APIs which are not being leveraged? Having standard measures for APIs, so which means that you categorize your APIs as green, greener, and brown, right? Based on whether they are using cache, what is their data usage, how big, what's the size of payload, etc. And then finally, the greenest API is an API which is never written, because you're able to find an API that another team has built, or an external industry, external organization who has built it for you. So common catalog is critical. So having API hub of all APIs in your organization in the same place, making it easier for your developers to find it and start leveraging it is going to be essential. Both for your internal developers and partner and external developers. So having API hub and API portal, but also publishing the score, right? What we are seeing is, again, if you give the power to the end user so that they can choose greener APIs over a brown API, then you can eventually quickly decommission your brown APIs. So again, this is something that we can do right away in order to drive sustainability goals for your organization. Finally, tools. How do you do this? There is, of course, we spoke about cloud, we spoke about API ecosystem, and we spoke about what we can do now. So in order to drive your sustainability goal, you need tools which can help you track, measure, report, and act on that data and your APIs quickly. Of course, coming from Google, I'm going to talk about Apigee, being a tool which is, of course, has been a Gartner market leader for the last 6 years. We have launched Apigee Pay-as-you-go this year. And the idea is to remove barriers for our developers to start leveraging the platform right away without waiting for a long procurement cycle, purchasing cycle. You have the ability to leverage the top-in-class, world-class platform as soon as you're ready to start evaluating something, experience something different. gain the freedom to experiment, as they say. We have a webinar coming up next week. Please do use the QR code. In the registration, if you write I love APIs or API days, we'll give you some white glove treatment. Make sure that we are nicer to you and answer your questions faster. So yeah, that's all that I had. I did well on time.
You did very good.
Awesome.
The next speaker is actually ill and not going to make it. So I'm sorry, I just learned that.
Okay.
But are you?
I am done. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes.
Love talking about APIs and Apigee, so.
So that's very good. So thank you so much. Great presentation.